Hello, I'm Wale Ogunlaya, head of the Athlete and Entertainer segment here at UBS. I'm excited about my next conversation with Edgerrin James, a long term friend of mine. Over the past few years, finance and the sports industries have started to merge. The amount of money that's being generated within sports is becoming astronomical. You're seeing name, image, and likeness, legalized gambling on a large scale, and there's an opportunity for the public to invest with private equity firms like Actros. Where do you see this industry going? Continuing to mesh where individuals are able to invest into sports teams more so than just the players and the coaches that used to benefit from their salaries? Where do you see the industry moving?
I just think overall, you better learn business. You better get into business because that's the foundation of every move that's made. Everything that's happening is really coming down to business. When you have social media platforms, you have some kids that have influence, and they they have value to all these companies. These companies want to be able to put eyes on their product. And these kids can actually do it, and they're creative ways to where you know they've touched so many different audiences. You look at sports, entertainment, everything is all the same. For me, when it comes to the NIL and all those things, it's one of those situations where if I take if I take children that come from a situation where their parents are already well versed or they're educated, I think they'll be okay. I think, but when you look at the sports, where do a lot of the kids come from? They're usually the first generation, or they're the first time going to college, and so they're being led by someone who has no idea or really don't understand finances, business, any of those things. What are you going to do to a kid that he didn't file his taxes? He didn't understand that he flew to California and there's different rules in California. He flew to New York and there's different rules there. Or he's in the state of Florida and there's different rules. You don't have people that have accountants. They don't have any of those CPAs on their team. So who who takes the blame for that? When I went to the University of Miami and they sit in the locker room with these credit cards and they say, hey, fill out for this. You probably did it. You fill out for it. And for me, I went and bought some rims for a car. I'm like, hey, you fill out for this, you can get this credit card, you can get all this. So I go buy rims. But then years later, I have these creditors calling me. They're calling my mom. They don't have a number on me. They calling my mom. They steady calling. They calling. And then she takes and she go pay it. And it's way more than what I got. And that was a 17, 18-year-old Edgerrin James. So I just say, everybody get educated, understand what's going on, because you can easily become a victim in this situation. And like right now, you look at all these kids, they sign these NIL deals. They just hand them a check. If it's $35,000, you get the whole $35,000. The kid has no idea that he has to pay taxes on that money. But who's going to tell him? Nobody's there to tell him right now.
You've come a long way from that 17-year-old kid, Edgerrin.
No, right?
Come a long way.
I went and got those rims, brother. I went and bought rims.
I mean, I say that because you become an amazing entrepreneur, businessman. But how did we get there? Who did you lean on to get the guidance from financial side of it? Like, how did you learn to get from this kid that was 17, not knowing what to do with that credit card, to this person who's, has his own company and is, into real estate, commercial and residential? How did we get here?
Right here. You get there through books. I took a liking to reading books. I took a liking to studying, because the things that I wanted to know, I didn't know somebody that could tell me firsthand. Somebody can come say, hey, come over here, I can teach you about this. But I know I can look up a book, look up a title, and get right to the information that I'm looking for. And that's part of why I wanted to write a book, because that stood out. Because everything you want to know is in the books. It's just, are you willing to do what it takes? Are you willing to go and find those books? Are you willing to sit down and read? You know, I'm willing to do those things.
When you're in the NFL, what were your kind of rituals and what were your routines that you would lean on to stay on top?
Put your best foot forward. Just like in business, if you want to be one of the best, you have to do what the best do. And how do you know what the best do? First of all, you got to identify them. I identified who were the best guys in my position to ever play the game. And I would have this chart. I had this chart that had every player, every yard they had. I mean, all their stats. I knew everybody's stats, even in the midst of playing the game. And so every week after the game is over, I go and compute my little yards. And then my little yards started turning to a little bit more. And then it started getting bigger and bigger. And the discipline, I really started honing in because of the fact that I'm like, man, I'm like really close. It's like when you say, okay, I'm about to pass up a Hall of Fame. I don't need the media to tell me. I don't need nobody to tell me because, I'm self-motivated. So I had this chart at home. I would go in, I would plug in the numbers for years. After every game, I would go and plug these numbers in. And I just saw myself getting closer and closer. And not only did I do that as a football player and from a statistical standpoint, I did it financially. I would plug in whatever little money I would get, I would plug it in, and you just start seeing it grow. So now it turns into a game within the game. So now everybody else is playing the game for certain reasons or whatever, but for myself, I'm like, I have this chart. I just want to get a little bit more, a little bit more. And when it comes to the financials, you start saying, okay, yeah, for these numbers to go up, my spending has to go down. So I always kind of found a little system that I would input that would help me. And it wasn't something that I had to go brag to somebody about or I had to go show somebody. It was just one of those personal things to saying, man, look, for me to do well or for me to be where I want to go, I'm going to have to discipline myself. And those were the approaches that I took throughout my career.
You talk about the discipline that it took for you as a player to be the best. I was in the same locker rooms that you've been in. There's a lot of undisciplined characters in that locker room. Where did you find that motivation to find a way to have a game within a game and then be structured, especially with your finances, then also with the way you played football? Where did you get that from?
It comes down to purpose. I didn't come to just get in the NFL, but the day I signed my check, I had more than enough to do whatever I needed to do the rest of my life. I could have just bummed and could have been a bust, and I would have been okay away from the game. But it wasn't about that with me. It was bigger than that. If I stepped foot in this locker room and I said, man, I want to be the one of the best to ever play this game, I'm not only going to say it, I'm going to show you, I'm going to live it. So you would see me in the weight room. You would see me taking care of my body. You would see me staying out of trouble. You see me doing everything that it could possibly take because the purpose was bigger than me just being in the NFL. And I think now I can't tell anybody how to do things or how they should go about it. But from the outside looking in, from somebody that has been there, done that, I see a lot of people that's just happy to be there. They're happy to be there. Their goals aren't high enough. I think they've attained their goals and they're satisfied. You can't be a satisfied person, not if you want to be the best. It really comes down to your purpose. My purpose was bigger than that. And also knowing where I'm coming from, knowing that I have so many players or so many, just kids in general that look just like myself, that come from the same situation as myself. When you talk about NFL football player, we're going to use that as an example. A lot of the stories are the same. Single mom, they grew up like this, they grew up, everything. It's the same story, And so it's very important for me to be an example, to show these guys, to show these young kids, like, you don't have an excuse. I grew up in the same situation. You actually had more than me. So why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do? And that's part of my message, and that's part of my drive to be an example of what you can do if you actually lock in and do what it takes.
My question for you, as we build this thing out here at UBS, we want our advisors to understand some of the things you just talked about. How do we, and what should the industry, especially our private wealth advisors, when we're thinking about holding the hands of our athletes, our entertainers, how do we get away from those stereotypes, right? Your book is called From Gold Teeth to Gold Jacket. Really, it could be gold teeth and dreads to gold jacket, right? There's a perception that you had to, a prejudice or bias that you had to overcome in the business world. How, as a financial industry, should we be holding the hands of our clients, especially diverse individuals like yourself?
I think the first thing that I see that most financial institutions do wrong is they categorize, they put you in a box. They put you in a box and they don't really sit up there and break things down that's based upon the individual. Everybody's different. Everybody has different spending habits. They usually say you need to do it this way or this way. Instead of saying, oh, look, I want to tailor it to this person. We want to change the narrative. If I'm UBS, I'm saying, okay, I brought in a guy that has been in the NFL for years. He's one of y'all. So he understands you guys. And that's putting forth a conscious effort to say, we want to do better. We want to do more because I'm bringing in somebody that went through the same thing that you're going through. So it helps us relate because a lot of times, people can't really relate to the athlete. And it takes the athlete to kind of give you a little insight into what's going on or the mindset, and then when you bring institutions like that that's willing to bring people on board that's actually successful and have theirs and not just there to collect the check. When I came into this league, which was a million years ago, I came in 1999. The first thing they would say, 78% of the players end up without money. And then you go 20 years later, 78% of the players end up without money. Okay, what are we doing within those 20 years? Who's doing what? Who's sitting up here saying, hey man, look, can we at least move down to 73, 72? I mean, it don't have to be to where everybody ends up with money, but can we move the needle, And that's my thing is like, who's doing that? And you can't blame one person or the other person. I think it's a collective group. I think it takes the financial institution. I think it takes the NFL, but ultimately it takes the individual. Now, how do you reach this individual? That right there, that's going to be the toughest part. But once you reach that individual, you have the game plan. Athletes are used to being part of teams. And when they have a legit team and they know exactly what to do, they're going to do it. But if you tell an athlete like, hey man, give me $10 million, but I'm going to give you $1 million, you can go do whatever you want to with it. They're going to make the most out of that $1 million. But if you sell them a dream and say, hey, man, you have potential to make this right here, they're going to look at that number and say, well, they told me I was going to be able to make $8 more million. They're going to go spend the whole $8 million. That's how we live. We're living like that. We're living on the edge. We're going to take it all the way to, we're going to take it to the extreme. That's what we do. So I think people need to be more honest with the athletes. Say, look, this right here is too risky. This right here, it doesn't fit you. And you take some athletes, man, you're high risk. You don't need to be having all this money. Your family is going to take all your money. So it's like they need somebody that really be a parent. They really say, look, listen, little kid, I know what's going to happen. This happens every year. Listen, you need to do it like this. And you got to understand that a couple months ago, you had this money, and you was balling out of control, having fun. You was going to the party and having a good time. Why do you have to go take $1 million to have a good time? I can't understand that. I'm the same person. You're the same person. Those are the conversations that have to be had. And when those conversations are had and they're broken down, then it makes more sense because everybody thinks that, oh, because I'm in the NFL, I got to go get this multi-million-dollar house. I know everybody went and got a big house. I went and got a condo because I'm like, man, I don't need a big house because nobody's going to be in the house. Go get the book. There's a lot of insight, a lot of information that could help many or help different types of people, different types of situations. And these are things that I've seen happen over the years. And I think it's a good read, a good, easy read that I think you'll enjoy. And if you don't enjoy it, please let me know.
I just want to thank both of you for the opportunities to bask in the greatness of what you guys have done. This was a great conversation, and I'm happy that I was a part of it. So thank you both, John and Edgerrin.